Sorry, you can't retire. Hate to bring the news to you, but you're going to need to keep grinding away for another 10 years. Keep feeding the corporate machine that guides you because how dare you consider retiring? Because you can't. You just can't do it. All right, so I had when you've been in this business as long as I have, you talk to so many people. You just hear so many stories, my friends, about when God laughs at your retirement plans, to paraphrase the saying, and it's actually insane. So I was talking to a guy yesterday, and obviously not going to name names or anything, but just the stories you hear about family members dying suddenly, and I always use they fell off a roof, but there's so many instances of family members who just died, young, old, everywhere in between, and it's just sad, man. Because when your card is stamped, your ticket is stamped, you're going. There's just no other way around that. One of the things that helped me become less frustrated with life was when I recognized that God's in control. When God wants you, He's going to get you. That's all there's to it. I'll never forget. I was listening to G. Gordon Liddy show in like 1992, right when I got out of the Army. And I remember, I guess G. Gordon Liddy or someone called about flying. As someone I remember, that's what it was. Someone said, "I'm afraid to fly." I'll never forget. G. Gordon Liddy says, "Look, man, I'm not going to argue that flying is risky or safer than cars because that's a typical argument. I'm going to argue that when your time is up, there's nothing you can do about it." And I always thought that was just a great way to look at it and say, look, when God calls, you're going. And regardless if you're in good shape, regardless if you're young, just when God calls, you're going, man. Talked to another guy last night who had his wife was putting her hand on his stomach right there, and his heart, she felt a pulse like very strong, and they're like, whoa. Anyway, he goes to Doc, and Doc says some aorta artery or something like that. He's gonna have an aortary aneurysm. I can't remember what it was, but it's something where just weird. You're not supposed to have a pulse in your stomach. Anyway, the doc said, "Hey, you only got a 1% chance this happens. Not really a big deal." And the guy's like, "Well, if I'm already seeing the doc, why don't we go ahead and get the CAT scan or MRI, whatever it was?" And long story short, sure enough, he did. And they called him and said, "Get to the ER now. Get to the emergency room now, because when it hits, you only got a minute and a half and you're dead. There's no way you can recuperate." So they were able to get the surgery, get that done, and he's good to go. I hear these stories all the time. And you're sitting there thinking to yourself, well, I'll just grind away another 5, another 5, another 5. I'll just deal with the social justice warriors, another 5, another 5, another 5. I'll just deal with, Amazon, changing their freaking logo because someone said it looked like Hitler. I mean, this is the era we're dealing with just corporate stooges who just want you to grind and grind and grind as a machine, as a tool that you are. You're not a human to these people. There's no humanity in corporate America. And I'm talking about corporate America, never mind government, for heaven's sake. There's no humanity there. And that doesn't mean it's evil. I'm just telling you, corporate America allowed me to start my job. And I'm not saying you should just quit today if you haven't done the due diligence, but my goodness, people. Have you actually taken the step to do the due diligence? Have you? You're sitting there miserable. You're like, freaking my boss, SJW. Have you taken the time to figure stuff out? Have you? I'm just telling you, if you have no car payment and you're not inclined to buy the fancy schmancy good time rock and roll cars, and you're going to lease them every couple of years, and you've got little to no mortgage, there's probably a good chance you can hang up your boots. I'm going to redo my video on W-2s here in just a second. I'm going to show you just right out the gate. If you're making $100,000, you're not living off $100,000. You're just not, because of the taxes, the 401k contributions, the FICA. In this case, the video I did, and the audio was bad, so I'll do it again. The guy making $100,000, he's only living off $74,000. So immediately there's a 25% decline in income just right out the gate. Never mind all the else that goes with it, and the consumption drop as you age. It just, don't be these people who say, I'm going to grind, I'm going to grind, I'm going to grind, and then next thing you know, you're waking up dead, leaving your wife behind or your husband behind. And as always, I use the example of a good friend of mine from the family She was a nurse and just a great, great lady. Loved her to death. Knew her kids, just great people. And she always wanted to go on a Norwegian cruise through Europe, wherever that going through Austria and all that stuff. And he was German, so he always wanted to go, and just they were looking forward to doing this. And she's like, well, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. And then I said, man, just freaking do it. And this is just by luck, I don't know. But anyway, he died the next year, and she's like, oh man, thank goodness we did that, because I could never have forgiven myself if I would have kept my crappy old job and not have taken that vacation and spend that time with him, because he died at 67, a heart attack. Horrible. I tell you, man, just YOLO, you only live once. Make it work, man. And that doesn't mean, again, you don't just willy-nilly, oh, I'm going to retire today. Screw you, boss. You got to make sure your stuff's in order. I get that. But are you even doing that? And the first thing you got to do is look at your expenses, man. I mean, if your expenses are out of control, well, you basically, hold on a second. Come here, big baby. Come on. If you're not going out now, if your expenses, okay. Come on. Big babies, I thought he wanted to go out. No, come on. If your expenses are out of control, well, you're consuming now, or you consumed, there you go. You're consumed, because it's done. You consumed now what you won't be able to do in retirement. And that's the issue, man. If you're spending more money than taking in now, that inherently means you're bringing consumption forward for which you can't pay. And that's not good, because you will have to pay it. And you're going to pay it by reducing future consumption. And so that's another thing you got to look at, your expenses. Are you consuming too much now? Inherently, that means you're going to have to pay that back with future income, which means you're going to have to get a job or keep your crappy old job. So I'm telling you, everything revolves around expenses. Make sure you got those in order. All right. Again, but you got to look at the numbers, man. You got to crunch them to see where you stand. But don't be so caught up. There he goes, big baby. Don't be so caught up like, oh, I can't retire, without actually crunching the numbers. All right, we'll see you.